Today, Kimbra and I are going to talk about Meghan Markle and Harry. Uh, it's all over the news. It's everywhere. You really can't avoid it these days. So they have their Netflix show. 6 episodes have been released,
Hmm.
and that's the whole thing. And then Harry has a book coming out called Spare, I believe in January. And then, of course, we've got all the drama with the royal family and everything.
Hmm.
So we just thought we would address it and share our opinions. And nobody knows everything. You can't step in someone's shoes,
Sure.
especially us, the public, not knowing them. um I feel like there's two camps: the people that are for them and the people that are against them. The British press has put out unfavorable stories about them, and then of course we've got a lot of the American press putting out favorable stories, but a lot of unfavorable stories here in the US too, because that sells better. People love to hate.
You
It's
know,
easier and better.
I was going to say, aside from the British and the Americans, the Australians
Austra-
seem to really have a
yeah,
thing against her. You go on
yeah.
any Australian thing and they're like, it's really,
Yeah,
vitriolic. Is that the word?
yeah. And Australia aren't they a colony of the
Yes,
British? And
I
they want
believe they
to,
are.
whatever, sever ties or something. They're not happy. There's a
There's a
group,
movement.
yeah,
Yeah,
to sever ties. They don't want to be whatever, a
a
colony of the
colony.
UK.
What is
Um,
that thing? It's the group. It's it's that
the
group. And
empire.
yeah,
Yeah, they have an
Brit-
empire of,
yeah,
I forget, yeah, the word, but they're a
you know the word
colony, I
I'm
guess,
talking
of the
about.
UK. And so I think that's also for me, the bigger topic is that there's a monarchy. I find it really strange and silly to have a monarchy in this day and age. I always call them a circus act. They're like performers, and the difference in being a performer and being a monarchy is that they never can be human. And to me, I feel like it's not fair to them, although Prince Charles now is protecting the institution, and Prince William is protecting his birthright to be inherited to become king. And oh my gosh, to me, it just feels so silly. It's so ridiculous to be a king. Like, you are actually a king and you wear a crown and people have to bow for you.
But really, it's
Um,
only a figurehead thing. It's like being the greeter at the,
It is.
you
That's why I
know.
find it so silly. And then, of course, the money and influence. They have great influence,
Oh, and
though.
a lot of money.
And, they say they bring money to,
Hmm.
I don't know. It just feels like they're
It's
performers, and
the tourism.
they're not allowed to be human. It's like everything's about protecting the crown, and putting out stories, that protect them and that,
Hmm.
show them in a favorable light. And I just find it really silly. And they're very like not real human beings, like robotic, and all these gestures and protocol.
But
And I
it's I thought I had a feeling you were going to bring that up too, and I was thinking about that when I was watching the Netflix special, and Megan did there was a segment of the special, or the Netflix series, where one of the episodes where she talks about the first time that she met the Queen Mum, and she didn't know, I guess, supposedly, that she was supposed to bow or whatever, and so she just had in her mind that she was supposed to bow, and she did it very dramatically on the Netflix documentary.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know what you're saying, but part of me is thinking, because I felt like Harry kind of looked a little funny about it, like, because it's part of his, heritage that they know so well about that. And I felt like it was a little, and I know what you're saying, and I kind of agree with you, but I felt like it was a little disrespectful in a way, because it's the same thing as, like, if you're marrying into a family that's of a different religion or culture, and you may not believe in all that stuff, but when you're first meeting them, you want to, like, if you went to Japan or parts of Asia where they bow, and you're thinking, oh, that's kind of weird. Why are they, bowing to me? But I would probably do it out of respect. And that's just me. It's like, I feel like when you're first meeting your in-laws or whatever, you would just do it as out of respect. But then there's the bigger question, is it silly, to be bowing to
Well,
someone?
where you're a little off track is she doesn't bow back to you.
Mhm.
When there's a mutual respect, I'm all for that. You honor a
Well, no,
tradition,
that's not what I was saying,
shaking
though.
hands or
I'm not
whatever
saying what
it
you're
is.
saying, that it should be mutual, but I'm saying it's part of that ceremony of the tradition. Like if you're like, like when I was dating someone who was of a different religion than and I went to their church one time, and the men and the women sat on both, separate. And I was just thinking, what? This is great. I mean, for me, I was just like,
Right.
this is so, I just, but I did it because I didn't want to be disrespectful to their religion, and
Right.
so,
But
but that's
wasn't the
just me.
story that she just didn't realize she had to do that in private? Because what I read is that she said she didn't know they did that stuff in private. She thought it was only for
Well,
public fanfare. And
well,
she
if
didn't
I was
know.
meeting my relatives, but it might have been a spur of the moment thing, that she didn't know.
Well,
So
I'm
I
sure it was
really don't know.
planned. I mean, I don't think you just meet the queen without knowing ahead and it's planned. But she thought it was a private meeting and she didn't know she would have to curtsy before the queen,
That I
before
don't know.
her fiance's grandmother.
I'm no monarchist. Is that the word? I'm no royal family
Well,
watcher, but
yeah, but
I know something.
I'm just reiterating what she
Oh,
said.
no, what
She
I mean
didn't
is,
know. She wasn't out of disrespect. She did it all the other times in public.
no,
She
I'm
didn't
sure
know
she
she
did
had to
it
do it in
fine.
private.
No, I'm sure she did it fine to her, but what I meant was when she was making fun of it on the thing, because
Well, because it's silly. I find it very silly. But anyway, I get what you're saying too. I respect what you're saying, but I feel like
and
it's
I'm not
like,
very
let's
traditional,
say you go to a
so
culture where they downgrade women and they disrespect women and make the women wear the hijab or whatever.
right.
I'm sorry, I'm not going along with it. I'm
Well, there's
against
degrees. I mean, of course, it's like if I see somebody doing something really horrible, I'm not going to go along with it just because out of respect. But, I'm not going to cause waves unless it was a really horrible thing, at least the first time,
right.
and then you got
Well, I
to,
don't think she did. I think she just didn't know the first time she met her was in private and she didn't know she had to do that in private.
I don't
And
know.
then, of course, she did make fun of it in the documentary. And the news is what made a big deal of it. They said, oh, Harry
Mm,
felt uncomfortable, blah, blah, blah. I
right,
don't think
right,
he
right,
did. He never said anything about that.
right.
And I'm on, I
Megan,
don't
Team
think Meghan
Megan.
and Harry have done everything right, but I feel like they were pushed into positions where they had no choice. Um, Her father, I would never discuss my family business in public. I mean, that's so tacky and it doesn't accomplish anything. But her father started it.
Yeah, that's the
The
one
one
thing
that
I don't
started it.
understand about her father. It's like, because we had Gigi Perot on our podcast,
Yeah.
remember, and she was one of her teachers, and she always said that he was so nice and he would help build
Yeah.
the stages and do the lighting, and he was there for all her productions, and he just sounds like a really great father, like from what I've read and observed. And I just don't understand. I was saying this to someone over a drink the other night, that like, how could he do? She said, well, it's probably for the money, all this stuff that he's doing. And then I'm thinking, well, I don't know, maybe this is wrong, but I was thinking, why doesn't, even if they don't, I know she wants to see him again, but even if you don't want to ever see him again, if the guy's that broke that he's doing this for money, I don't know. Just,
It's selling out your own daughter. Why would you? That's such a betrayal.
no, I totally agree. I mean, if someone
Yeah.
did that to me, I would cut him up. But what I mean is, if he's
That's why
that
Jennifer
broke,
Aniston doesn't talk to her mother or didn't talk to her mother anymore because her mother wrote a book.
I know. And then
Why
she
would
passed.
a parent do that or a kid vice versa? Sell out your family for money.
Sell out
Um,
anybody for money. I don't care if it's your family
yeah,
or not,
yeah. But this is a family situation, so I'm talking about
Yeah, that's
family.
true.
Um, and I feel like he brought it on himself, and then the institution, the firm, whatever
The
you want to call the
firm. Hmm.
monarchy, they let lies go out in the press and they didn't defend Meghan and Harry. And that was their issue. And that's why to this day, they're still trying to get their story out. And it keeps getting twisted because when you stand up to power, it's just like all of the women who tried to stand up in the Me Too movement and got squelched, and all of the ones that have brought up times when they've been whatever, abused or misused or lied about or whatever, when you stand up to power, the media always goes for the power. And so it's really hard to fight against. And the
Mm-hmm.
media has taken the side of the monarchy because that's their money. They get stories from them and they
That's
plant
true.
stories with them. They give them photo opportunities. So that's how they make their money. I mean, I come from that business, so I know you go for the money. I mean, that's just the way it is. So that's why the press has become entertainment, not really reliable news anymore. So you can't trust anything that you've read
That's true.
in the news. It's he said, she said. It's still a debate of who did Kate make Meghan cry or did Meghan
Mm.
make Kate cry? And some people are adamant Meghan made Kate cry. Well,
We
there's
don't
no
know.
proof of that.
Right.
There's no, there's no proof unless maybe there were witnesses, but anybody that's Kate's friend is going to, you can't even trust. The monarchy is so powerful. Nobody that respects them and wants to be in their circle is going to go against them.
Mm-hmm.
No
Mm-hmm.
one is going to do that. So Meghan and Harry are kind of left out high and dry, left out in
Yeah.
the cold. And Meghan is unique. She is strong-willed,
And
free-loving, and American.
and also, one thing I learned from watching this Netflix series was how confident. I mean, I guess I always thought that, but I think she's so confident. I think that's so wonderful that she's so
I
secure.
do too. And I think a lot of people don't like that though. People don't like confident,
That's
strong
what I
women.
like about her. I was watching, I
Yeah.
was like, God, I think I'm confident, but she's really confident.
Well, I was watching this podcaster, Tisa Tells, just
Mm,
beautiful girl. And she was, I found her when I was watching things about those Idaho college student murders.
mm.
So I watched her show and then she did one on Meghan and Harry. And she said, this is something I didn't even think this far, but she said, Harry was a fixer upper. And when you think
Oh,
about it,
it's
you
funny.
know, because you think, oh, well, he's a prince and Meghan's
Right,
lucky to have him. But I
right.
think from Meghan's point of view, it's like, you come with a lot of baggage, and
That's true.
I think their love is genuine.
Yes,
I think
I would agree with
they
you.
have something so special, and I sound like I'm all, well, I really am. I want to like them and I do like them. They might be brats, they might be spoiled rich kids, they probably are. They've probably been mean to people at times where they
Mm.
shouldn't have. I would respect them if they had gone back and apologized or whatever. You in that world of money. I'm not saying that I know for sure Meghan has never snapped at an employee. She
Well, I
may
mean,
have,
who hasn't?
everybody has bad days.
Sure.
But what I like about them is that they're standing up to power, to the monarchy. I think a monarchy is ridiculous anyway, so I think it should be done away with. And I don't think anybody should curtsy before anyone else because I think that is a status symbol that perpetuates all kinds of racism, sexism, all kinds of isms that I don't think anybody should be bowing to anyone else in this day and age, or putting someone on a pedestal, wearing a crown and bowing before them. I think that's very symbolic of a lot of other issues that go on in our world. So I would not be a part of that. With that said, I think Meghan and Harry took a chance. I think at first they were trying to do both. Harry didn't want to give up his status and his
Hmm.
rights, but in the end, he said, I think he said it in the documentary. I don't remember where I heard it or read it, but he said he was willing to walk away from it.
Hmm.
They were
And he
willing to
did.
give up. And I kept thinking all along, the one thing that was bothering me is they still are called the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. And I
Right.
thought, why don't they give up their titles? They offered to. They were going to. They were willing to do that. So I have no issues with them and how they went about things. They did try to stay in. It's hard to just leave your family, leave the world that's been created for you.
Right.
So
And
it would be
as
hard to
Harry
just walk
said,
away.
he said his mom used to always tell him, because the trade-off of this, the privilege that you have is the service that you have to give, because you've
Yeah.
been born into this privilege, right? So
Mhm.
I'm sure he tried to live up to the best that he could, that his mom and
Yeah.
others told him,
Well, and now people are criticizing them and saying they're doing all this for money. Well, yeah, that's what the
yeah.
royal family does. I mean, it's no different than the royal family doing their performances for money,
I did
to keep their status and all their wealth.
I did have a friend though that last night I was at a dinner party and she's married to a British guy, and she was saying that the Brits don't really like, the royals at all, any of them, I mean, I'm sure some do, obviously, but the general public. But she was saying that she goes, I found it so whiny. She thought the podcast, not the podcast, the Netflix documentary was so whiny, like stop your whining, about them.
I feel like, yeah, I feel like people are criticizing them for being, whiny, if that's the word you want to call it. Because I didn't watch the documentary, but I read a lot about it. I was reading the positives and the negatives of what the press was doing, because I was more interested in that. And I feel like they can't win because they're trying to tell their story. They're trying to tell their truth, which I'm sure some of it's slanted when you're telling your truth.
Of course.
You don't see things from the other person's point of view.
And you're going to edit it really well to make sure that you come off really good, sympathetic.
But it came from reality. I mean, this wasn't made up. They did the same thing to Kate Middleton, but maybe not as harshly. Or maybe I feel like Kate Middleton is a lovely young lady, but I don't feel like I feel like to her being Queen of England is more important than having a real life. And to me, I don't respect that. I feel like she's like living with in these parameters to be this little perfect princess robot so that she can one day be Queen of England. And I find that actually repulsive, and I have no respect for that.
Maybe by the time she is queen, I mean, I'm not saying that the monarchy is going to happen, but I'm not trying to curse you guys in the monarchy, but I'm just saying that, you never know.
I hope it goes away. I just find it's so distasteful.
It's so funny though, how like all these rock stars get knighted by the Queen, but now will be by Prince Charles, or King Charles, excuse me. And, all these rockers, real rebellious, that put them down when they were young and up. Now that they're rich, they're like, I've been knighted by the,
Yeah. They change because when you have something to gain, hey, if Prince or whatever, King Charles came to me and said, Kelly, I'm going to make you Duchess of whatever, Cornwall or whatever.
Duchess of Larrabee.
Well, I know who I am though. I'd be like, what's that going to do for me? Because I've had many opportunities for big things and passed them up because it didn't feel right ethically.
Right.
So I guess I can't use that as an
example. Well, maybe
a lot of people would change their tune if they become part of it. That's why I don't trust anyone that says, an insider from the royal family or lady so-and-so, if she's a lady, she's part of the royal, whatever, not the family, but the royal circus.
Isn't Duke and Duchess, is that considered? No, that's Dame. That's right. When you're knighted by the king, then your wife becomes lady.
Well, Diana was Lady Diana Spencer,
right,
before she married Charles.
Yeah, because her family was,
they
kind
were
of in those circles.
Royalty. There's a lot.
She was considered a commoner, but she had, grew up in those circles. Her dad, I don't know. I'm not sure.
She was Lady Di. She wasn't considered a commoner. Kate
no, she was. She was considered. If you look it up, I remember reading about it. Technically, Diana was. Okay. I mean, I could be wrong. Someone might correct me out there, but
well, I would remember, say she has a title. She's not a commoner, but I know Kate was a commoner because she doesn't have any titles.
Right. I could have sworn that I read years ago that Diana was considered a commoner. Technically, she wasn't of royal blood. But she was definitely
in the royal blood.
She was in the circles.
Makes her a commoner.
Yeah.
But her father had some kind of earl or
Yeah. I think he was. Yeah. So Earl of Spencer or something.
Yeah, a commoner. Yeah. Anyway, I just find
who knows?
Silly. And they make up the rules as they go along too. That's the other thing that kills me. They just change the rules.
Oh, that's true.
We're not going to do this anymore. But you have to do this now. And it's like,
because before, like, if you were divorced, you couldn't even Harry wouldn't have been allowed, but now since divorce is so common,
it's another thing that always irritated me, even back before the Harry and Meghan stuff with Princess Di and Prince Charles. He married her when he loved someone else, and I never blamed him. People would get mad at him.
Camilla,
he had to. He was forced to marry this virgin. I read back then she had to go to the doctor to confirm that she was a virgin. Oh my gosh, that's like crazy.
Right.
I feel like Diana did the same things Meghan's doing. She stood up to power, but she had already won everybody's heart. Whereas
Right.
Meghan came in as an outsider and never got the chance to win people's hearts. She started fighting back right away. And Harry was very protective of her because of his mother. What happened? He didn't want to see that happen to
And
Meghan too.
Diana was so vulnerable. And I mean, she just oozed that vulnerability, so sweet, because she was so young when she got in the royal family. And then she did all those things that people never did before, like going to those AIDS hospitals and, hugging the babies that had, AIDS. And she never, people never did stuff like that back then, especially
Well,
when
Meghan
they,
never got credit for all the stuff she did too before she even was a royal. She had
right, right.
always been involved in charity and the little girls in India, getting them feminine products so
Mm-hmm.
they could go to school. That is not a glamorous charity. And she did that before she ever even met Harry. So she
Well,
never
I think that's
gets
why he was
credit.
attracted to her too, because,
Mhm.
she did all that charity work,
Yeah, she's a really good person. And her mother raised her that way. Her mother taught
and
her.
father,
But
they
from
were,
what I read, it was her mother that
oh,
had her doing charity.
oh, okay.
Her
Maybe you're right
mother
about
taught
that.
her about, the importance of charity work. And so um I feel like she doesn't get credit for any of that. And she just got attacked too early, too soon, and started fighting back too soon
Mm,
before people had a chance to get to know the good side of her.
mm-hmm.
Um, and I feel like everything that they say bad about her, I take with a grain of salt because of
Sure.
what they did to her, how they treated her. Whereas
Right.
Kate, and then they compare Middleton, Kate never fought back because all Kate cared about was landing Prince William and becoming Queen of England. That's all. That was her
Well,
mission.
I
And
don't know if
she was from the UK, so
right.
she knew the game and she was willing to play it so that she could become the Queen of England one day. Whereas Prince Harry's girlfriends weren't ever going to become Queen of England, so
Right.
they were like quite a few of them from what I read
And they didn't really want
didn't
to
want
be,
that lifestyle.
yeah. Well, because they were from rich families too. They were in that circle. And
Right.
so they were like, I don't want to be involved with that circus because they already had some privilege already.
Right.
So
Well,
they
they
were
knew
thinking,
they would be scrutinized and treated
mm-hmm,
badly, and they didn't want anything to do with it. So Meghan didn't either, but she really loved him. So she didn't marry him because she was going to become a queen or anything. She was never going to I don't even know if she would get the title of princess. It was
I don't know.
debatable whether or not she would, because that would be up to King
Right. I
Charles.
think the queen, when she was alive, can make that decision, but I'm not
Yeah,
sure about
now it
that.
would be up to King Charles. So, but it's not a
Hmm.
guarantee. So it's not like, oh, I'm going to become a princess.
But,
It
she
was
probably knew she was going to be a lot of privilege. I can't say that,
I think
she knew.
Meghan Markle has enough confidence that she believes she was going to have a lot of privilege no matter what. I don't think
Maybe
she felt she
so.
had to marry Harry to become, famous or
Mm.
in a privileged position. I don't feel like that was her mission. I feel like Kate Middleton didn't have anything else to offer, and that was the best she could do. So I
Oh,
feel
I
like
don't know.
that's
I
why
wouldn't go that far because she was, she's beautiful and she's comes from a
yeah,
wealthy family, but
she didn't know. You should read up on it. She
no,
didn't
she
have much
did.
to offer. She didn't even have any good jobs. She didn't work.
Oh, wow.
The palace wanted her to work.
But she was so
Um,
young. I don't, give her a chance. I mean, I don't even know her, but I'm
she
just
was into
assuming.
her late 20s before they got married.
Yeah, but I
She
mean,
had never done anything of note,
but that doesn't mean she couldn't in her 30s, you know?
but she wasn't planning on it. That was the
Well, you
point,
don't
is
know that
that
for sure. Remember, you even said that the media, you can't believe everything that you've read,
right.
so
But if
you,
I go by people's behavior, and if you're
right.
like 28, I don't know how old she was when she got engaged, but if you're in your mid to late 20s and you haven't really even had a job, a good job, I
Well,
would
I
say
had a
you're probably
job,
not that ambitious.
but I changed careers a couple times. So I'm always for, people could, well, I didn't change careers, but I've morphed a few times. So, I don't think that
Yeah, but you're
I'm
not
just
rich and
saying,
famous. I mean, that's my point is Meghan was going to be rich and famous regardless. Kate was not.
well, I'm just saying I don't want to, I can't say bad about Kate because I don't really know her and I haven't, I just don't know if that's making that blanket statement that she sold her, sold the farm just to marry the prince. I mean, maybe she did, but I'm just saying she might have other things that would have happened. I mean, sure, if Prince William if I'd gone to school with him and I was in her position, I might have fallen madly in love with him too. And, I don't know, I'm just saying,
Wait,
I don't want to
wait all
make a
those
blank.
years.
Excuse me.
Well, he goes, wait all those years for him.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I
I
mean,
mean,
growing
yeah,
up,
you never know, but
yeah,
you look at examine a situation and you think about it and you look at the relationship now,
right.
and it just doesn't seem like there's a lot of love there. Seems like it's more of a business arrangement, which
Well,
that's how a
yeah.
lot of marriages turn out to be.
Well,
So
yeah, yeah. Originally, that's kind of what they were. It was always a business relationship.
it
And
just
still,
seems, because again, we're saying we're judging,
right.
knowing what we know, which is not everything. We have not walked in these people's shoes. We don't know everything. Kate's personality is more passive and
Yeah, I would agree
submissive.
with that.
And
Yes.
she seems to be happy with the way things are, and she's taking the back seat, but she's going to be the Queen of England one day. So, that's maybe the trade-off for her, for all of the criticisms.
And she does have beautiful kids, and maybe she's a great mom. I don't know.
Well, I'm not saying that she's not. I mean,
What I mean is like, that's a
probably
big
they
job, I
seem like
think.
really good parents and they love
Yeah.
their kids.
And they're really cute. Like these kids, her kids, they keep making these goofy faces whenever the camera,
Yeah.
like they
Oh,
keep
the
doing
little
these.
one is a riot.
Yeah.
Louis, he is such a riot. I can't
Prince
remember. It
Louis
wasn't at the Queen's 75th
coronation, or
anniversary or whatever.
yeah,
Her anniversary,
coronation. Why did I
the
say that?
Jubilee. It was the Jubilee. Yeah,
Yeah.
her coronation was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But the Jubilee, the
As you can
little
tell, I don't know the
Louis
lingo.
was very, very animated and
Yes.
cute. But yeah, they're big kids. And I think Kate and William are trying to be a little bit more modern with things. But
Well,
again,
this is the
you're
thing about
royalty
William
or you're
too.
not.
Well, this is the thing about, I don't know William, but I was thinking about this the other day, that like I feel like he doesn't get as much credit either, because supposedly from things I've read, he used to be the one that, like when Princess Diana was going through all that stuff with Charles, he would console her and, sit outside the bathroom and give her Kleenex. And he was like his little buddy. And he helped, kind of protect Harry a little bit too. So he was
He's
kind
the
of in
older
this,
brother.
yeah, he was in this rough position, and he's gone through a lot,
Yeah, but then he didn't really defend Diana when
Oh,
things went off the
Harry, I mean,
charts.
William, you mean?
William, because he's protecting the firm, because
Mm,
that's his future. So he kind of sold her out. He let her go to the wolves on her own, and he was actually mad at
yeah.
her
Oh,
for
really? I didn't know that.
bringing it all to light. Yeah.
Mm,
So,
well, that could be true.
yeah, as a kid, I mean, if your mom's crying, of course you're going to give her a tissue.
Yeah.
You
But
don't
I
feel
know
bad.
what I mean is, it's not just giving your mom a tissue. It's like you're stuck between, you got to listen to your mom crying every night, and then you're being
Well,
hauled away by
kids
your
go through
dad.
that all the time when parents get
Yeah.
divorced.
But
Um, and usually you take the side of your mom if your dad's cheating.
mhm,
So, you would naturally do that. So I'm not, he did the right thing, and he was a protective older brother. But in the
right.
end, from what I am observing,
Mm,
the firm is above everything.
mhm,
It's above his mother, his brother, his
mm.
family,
It's kind of like,
everything. And he will protect it at all cost
it's
to
kind of like a,
become the king of England, which
right.
I find, it's like,
Ridiculous.
oh, I get to be the clown in the circus, so I'm going to sell out my family and let them, let the press say bad things about them and not defend them, so that I
Well,
can be this king. I just find it really cold
from, yeah,
and uh downright actually mean, and very selfish.
from what
So
I've only been watching The Crown, so this is like, who knows how real that is,
yeah,
right?
that's not supposed to be completely real.
Right. But in answer to what you're saying too, it seems like maybe they're delusional, but it seems like they feel like this is a mission, and it's all part of that whole, British colony. It's the British Empire, and that it's bigger than any little problems they have, because and even the Queen Elizabeth thought that too. It's like, we've got to preserve the monarchy because we're doing all this good work, so they felt like they were on this mission, that their firm was bigger than any one
Right.
person,
Right. They do feel that.
yeah.
I
So
mean, we can't say what they feel, but
yeah,
it seems that, yeah, they feel that they're willing to protect it for their own benefit.
well, that's true
Because
too,
only the ones that are going to be the monarchs are the ones that are protecting it. I will say Margaret that's a sister. She stood by the queen, but it was a different time. Diana has stood up to them. Andrew, I think, is a little disillusioned with the
he's kind of like the
monarchy
black
right now
sheep,
too.
you know.
And then Harry and Meghan have stood up to them, and I think as time goes on, more people, it's about evolution. It's about evolving to become better people, more evolved,
Sure.
growing people. And a monarchy is so archaic, and um, the history of the monarchy and what they did and all the people they killed, and even under Queen Elizabeth, the people that they killed and that suffered is reprehensible. So for me, and obviously my feelings are very clear that I'm against the monarchy. I feel like they need to go away. I feel like it needs to, and there've been proposals
Sure.
in their parliament proposing that they dissolve the monarchy. Let them go away. They'll still be the very wealthy people, and they
Yeah.
can still be in the aristocracy. But as an American citizen, that's what we left behind. We don't want kings and rulers
Sure.
and aristocracy, even though that's what we're becoming here in the US too. I just can't defend them or
Abide.
support them
Right.
when I feel like they've put their privilege, I guess you want to call their privilege, above their own family. I find it repulsive. And back to Harry and Meghan, I wish them well. I hope they do well and thrive. And all the criticisms of them, there's a very strong support of them in the US here
Oh
too,
yeah.
because we're more advanced. We're not that archaic kind of culture.
Well, and plus
We
she's
believe
American
everybody's equal.
too.
Well,
She's
yeah.
American, and I feel like we're a little more sympathetic. Don't you think that
Well, I
way?
think we're more evolved. We're
Yeah.
just
But
more
also we could, because she's one of us, we relate to
maybe more
her in some way.
protective of her
Yeah,
because she's
maybe.
yeah. Well, I said that on our other podcast. I said, well, now we have Harry too.
Oh, that's true.
So
Yeah.
we got him too, which
I like Harry. I do like Harry. He seems like such a nice guy,
well, from everything the snippets that I saw of the podcast, I really
podcast or the
or
documentary.
their Netflix series,
Yeah.
whatever their series.
Right.
Remind me, I'll mention what I think about Meghan's
Yes.
podcast in a minute too.
Archetypes.
She does have a podcast, but I feel like they're sincere, and I think they're 100% in the right. Well, maybe not 100% because nobody's
You
ever
never
right
know.
all the time, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe 95% of what they're saying is right and true. And I feel for William. I feel, like Harry said on the Oprah interview, I feel for them. They're stuck. Like if William would go against the monarchy, he would be responsible for bringing the whole thing down, for destroying the entire a whole history of
Right.
monarchy. But and it's his heritage. He's going to be a king. Who doesn't want to be the king or the
It's good to
queen?
be king.
It's good to be king. So they're all in a bad position. But I feel like William could have come to Harry's defense a little more. And I feel like, when it goes way back to the beginning, when Harry came to William and said, do you think you're rushing this? Because William took
Yeah.
a long time. They
Right.
said he wanted to make
But
sure Kate was prepared. She was the right one. He
see, I'm
didn't
kind
want
of more like
anybody.
him that way, because obviously I always take forever deciding on a boyfriend and what house. But I'm more of that mind, like, I don't rush into things when they're that big. So I kind
More
of,
cautious.
yeah, I'm a little more cautious. So I don't feel in that particular, because I read about that too. I don't feel like William was necessarily, but Harry took it so personally, like when he said, aren't you rushing things? I guess he really got upset that he wasn't 100% like, woo woo.
That's what I was trying to say. I was going
Yeah.
to say, I feel like William went to him and said, are you rushing things? Because he was concerned. The press and everything, let everybody get used to it. And she's from another country. Let her get used to this lifestyle, be
Right.
sure. And then, yeah, Harry kind of got bent out of shape and was really mad. And I think in that way, Harry was
A little bit of a
wrong, but
hothead.
he was a guy, a guy in love, and he
Right.
support of his family. But then once William saw Harry's reaction, I think William should have just backed off and accepted it and said, okay, we'll support her. We'll support you. This is what you want. And I don't think he did. I think he still had reservations about her. And he was right. I mean, she's, you know, not supportive of the monarchy, and she's just from a different culture. In
Right.
America, we don't walk behind another person because they're of a certain title, or
Sure.
we don't do that.
Right.
We don't curtsy and bow and have all those protocols that they do with the royal family. And I can see, and then also Harry growing up, the spare. His book's
Mm,
called The Spare. You have two kids, and basically you're telling one they're more special than the other one. Their whole life, you're just special. You were born first, so you have this special position. And I think that's horrible to do to the younger one. And you don't count, so you can do whatever, and you're not as important. But William, we have to protect him in the press, and we have to, do all we can. But we'll just let you find your way. And I feel like that hurt Harry. I feel like Harry's more sensitive.
he seems like it. I have friends that feel that way, and they're not even royal. They're always like, my
Oh
sister,
yeah.
because she was firstborn, she gets everything, and
Yeah.
blah blah
You don't
blah.
do that to your kids. Make
Yeah,
one feel more important or more special
you
than the other. I
shouldn't.
just think that's
You shouldn't.
horrible. And it's very damaging. And so I feel like in that way, the US, we're just more progressive and more evolved to understand those kinds of things, that we're not robots. We're humans, and we have feelings, and we all want to feel equal. We all want to
Hmm.
feel like we
Hmm.
have the same value as everyone else. And then, in the UK, they don't.
Well, there was a reason why we, broke away from England in the first
Yeah.
place.
Yeah. Well, it was many reasons. And
Right.
again, I just think a monarchy shouldn't exist in this day and age. I find it silly. And I feel for them because they don't even know what they're missing. Yes, they have privilege that they wouldn't have otherwise, but rich people have the same privilege. They don't have to live this life, though, that these people live. They still have all their money, and they're still going to be very privileged, respected people, that people are going to love them just because they have money. And they'll
Hmm.
have all the options that they have now, but they won't have to live in this cage,
Hmm.
this these like circus performers. That's the only thing. It just reminds me of, like, they show up and it's like, oh, they're going to be here. They're a performer, where
Hmm.
like our performers are rock stars. They can get drunk and pass out and vomit on themselves, and we still love them. Whereas if the royal family would act as that human, which is, I'm not saying that's a good thing to do, they
Right,
would,
right.
it would be awful. It would be
Please
such
don't
a
pass out and vomit on yourself.
yeah, don't do that. But anyway, I just find the whole thing silly, and I feel like it's a shame it's been brought out in the public. But maybe that, feel like Diana did some work there and advanced things with the royal family and how
Hmm.
they do things. And then I feel like this will also advance things towards possibly dissolving that institution.
I do think, though, a side note is that they really need to crack down on the paparazzi in Europe. It's so horrible. It's just, Diana basically died because of it, but it doesn't seem like it's gotten much better. Believe it or not, it's worse in England and other European countries than it is here. The paparazzi,
It's funny because the only reason they thrive is because it's profitable.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so it's the people, and it's the same people. They like a monarch, so it's got to be something in their psyche where they thrive on celebrity, and
Mm.
they thrive on being peasants, because if you have a monarchy, everybody's a peasant. You're
Mm.
peasants. And they maybe don't have such high self-esteem, maybe don't have yeah, maybe they need to do some evolving the people, the public too, because if they're buying all that, I remember up until Diana died, I used to buy those magazines, The Star and The Enquirer, and I'd read them, and
Mm.
I'd, be like, oh my God, really? Of
Because they
course,
get the most amazing pictures
believe it and stuff. And then after she died, I was like, I'll never buy one of those again.
good for
And it
you.
was a step forward for me in my evolution of,
Hmm.
you know,
Hmm.
and of course, living in LA, we were always around celebrities. So you kind of lose
It's not as
interest.
big of a
Like
deal, yeah.
and you realize they're just people like us. So it's, you don't really get excited about it.
But it's a big money making machine because those magazines are expensive, like the National Enquirer and all them. It's or Star, whatever it is. It's like, I don't know,
Yeah, they're
five or
big
six
money.
dollars now.
Well, and even here, how we put celebrities on a pedestal, it's not fair to them. I mean, it's not to make them feel they're kind of ostracized from society.
Right.
Like I always thought about that. The one thing that I always thought about if I ever became famous is like, well, I'm still going to the grocery store. I am sorry, but I like to go to the grocery store. That's one of my
I like
things.
to shop.
Yeah. I don't know. I just like the grocery store.
I hate the grocery store because it's always so cold in there.
Well, yeah, you just bundle up though. And
Yeah.
I always see foods I never knew exist. I'm like, oh, they have this. Let me try this. But I don't know. I just feel like doing that to other people and putting people on a pedestal, it's fun. It's fun for them, but it's also takes something away from them. It doesn't let them be human, as human. Like Elvis, you know how much I love Elvis Presley. So I'm always watching YouTube videos pop up about Elvis's history. And he would stay in his bedroom, even at Graceland, because he didn't want to go downstairs because his mafia, whatever, his bodyguard
Memphis
would
Mafia.
have people over that he didn't know. And he didn't know that they wouldn't go write something about him or say something about him or whatever. So he stayed in his bedroom all the time to live that kind of lifestyle because you're so afraid somebody's going to say something bad about you or print a picture or whatever. I find it very sad. I think it's just a sad thing to do to someone, let alone the other thing that I used to think about with celebrities is I never, as many as I had been around, I would never ask to pose for a picture with them or ask for an autograph because I just felt like it made them, it put them on a different plane, a different level. And I was like, I don't want your name on a piece of paper. Why would I want somebody's autograph?
Autographs always seem dumb to me. It's like, who cares?
Yeah, I'm like, so what? I'll give you mine, but I wouldn't want to sign autographs either. I remember I used to have to do it when I was a professional cheerleader, and I would always be like, you want my autograph, my signature? It just felt weird. It just seems weird, but anyway, that's one thing that we still do here in the US too.
They have these autograph shows. A couple of my friends that they make kind of a lot of money selling their autographs on the weekends. You can make a lot of money doing that. especially if especially if you're like in a series like Star Trek where all the Trekkies come.
Yeah, because the Trekkies, they have huge fans.
And I
guess I don't want to sound like a Grinch since
you're such a Grinch.
Because it is fun. It's fun to admire other people. Again, as a culture, I wish we admired
scientists,
more heroes, more people, them too, not to downplay our sports heroes and our actors and our musicians. They are talented, great people. But I wish we also encouraged our youth to admire, someone that invented something or someone that,
well, it depends on your parenting too.
Your doctors and your policemen and firemen, someone that risked their life to save somebody else's life. I don't think we make a big enough deal out of that.
Well, in some circles they do, but not in general. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, not universally, and not, it's like little kids want to grow up to be whatever, a basketball player, not a fireman. And there was a time when little kids used to be a big deal, but I think we've just lost we've become more superficial. We've lost our values in a way. But anyway,
it's all about money. But anyway, so the Harry and Meghan saga will continue with or without us.
Yes, it will. And we'll be curious to hear what the Spare has.
Oh, you were gonna talk about
Meghan's podcast. I think it's very clear. I made it very clear. I really like Meghan and Harry, and I don't know their faults. So all I know is the story about,
the good stuff.
Whatever. But I still support them because I think they've done the right thing. So anyway, I listened to one of Meghan's podcasts. It was, I think, one of the first ones. And I hate to say it, I hate to be critical, but I was very bored. She does a lot of narration in the background. And how many people watch ours and think we're boring?
Boring.
But I feel like a little bit, I don't know. I don't know what the difference is because I've seen a couple podcasts that I found very boring. And then other ones, like I've told you, Joe Rogan, they can get off, they go off on tangents, and their conversations are free flowing. They're not like, oh, we're going to talk about this today and that's all we're going to talk about.
Well, one thing about
Oh.
her that I heard a criticism, maybe you agree or disagree, was about the podcast of hers, though, is that it was too much about her. Like, usually when it's the guest, you really want to talk to the guest, and she would always turn it back around to be about her. So I honestly haven't listened to any of her podcasts, so I don't know. But and she can
I
be a
didn't
little.
find the guests to be that fascinating either, though.
That's
Serena
true.
Williams was talking about things, and um, I felt like, I don't know, it just didn't capture me. Like Joe Rogan's is always interesting,
He's a
and
little more
even when he
edgier.
talks about
He's a little edgier.
dumb things. So I don't know. I haven't put my finger on it, and maybe that's, maybe we're
Well,
doing the same thing, but
maybe, yeah, maybe we are
I
like
was just a little bored. I think what bothered me was the narration.
yeah.
And I
It,
think the reason she's doing it is she really wants to get her story out. And I think that's why it's about her a lot. She's trying to explain herself. She's trying to let people know her and reveal herself. And I think if she did it in a more organic way and just
right.
took her time and it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time to change people's opinions of her.
And not be so perfect. Like, me, I'm always, in the beginning, I'm always like, I gotta be so perfect. But I've been watching the Pete and Sebastian show, which I always tell you about. And they're constantly making, and it's been a good learning experience for me, because I'm like, God, they mess up so much. But it's just funny. So
But I would always
sometimes,
tell you it's about being more real, just being who
right,
you are and not planning and
right.
not,
And if you don't know something, you don't know it, and
yeah,
it's okay.
you're human.
you
It's
know
okay.
and
Um,
she's, I haven't listened to her podcast, so I really should not make
yeah.
any statement about it.
I was disappointed because I so want to support her
Right.
and love it. And she'll do other things and she'll figure it out. It was her first one. She's
Mm.
figuring it out herself too.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I don't mean to sound so critical, but I was just of everything, of the Netflix documentary and everything else I've heard about, I support and I understand from
Hmm.
their point of
Hmm.
view. And I even understand the podcast. I feel like she's just trying to explain herself, share her side of the story, let people get to know her. But I think she doesn't need to rush it so much. And I think she can back off a little bit and just have fun,
Yeah, maybe have a little more
love her
humor, because
story.
I'm always, because damn it, I'm funny. But it's like I don't show
You
that
are.
as much.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Just
maybe add a little
loosen up
more, yeah, loosen up. That's a
and
good
be just
suggestion.
more real. And
Right.
like you said, maybe a little less about her and just let her um have curiosity about her guests, genuine curiosity about
Sure.
other people and
That's
other things.
true.
And I think that would be helpful to her too, because right now I feel for her. I feel like she just constantly feels like she needs to explain herself. And
Mm.
sometimes at a certain point, you know what? Screw them. Let them think whatever they want. You got the man of your dreams. You have two beautiful kids, all money, future career. Don't worry about it. There's always going to, even if you didn't have all that monarchy stuff, no matter what, once you put yourself in the public, and I told you that when we started this, I said, Kimbra, you got to be prepared. People are going to criticize. And it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're perfect. There's going to be somebody and it comes from jealousy, insecurity, low self-esteem. The haters, they call them the haters. Everybody has them because there are people out there that don't want to see other people succeed.
That's
They
true.
don't like seeing a strong, confident woman. They don't like it. It bugs them. And so they will pick apart any little thing they can to feel better about themselves. And that's the world we live in. So I give
And
her
everybody has their
credit.
voice, their platform to release their opinion, which is good
Right.
and bad, right?
Right. Well, and nobody's perfect. So maybe
Right.
she is in a bad mood some days. Maybe she's done some bad things. So what?
Right. We
So
all
has
have.
every other person that's listening to her story. We're
Hmm.
all human beings. And the better approach would be to support her and look for the good things and help build her up, help build up other people instead of trying to tear
Hmm.
them down. But again, that's just insecure, jealous people with low self-esteem that are
Hmm.
always defensive and trying to tear other people down. So but anyway, and with that said, I think she probably will get better with her podcast and improve. But I was a little disappointed. I was like, and I'm only sharing that because I don't want to seem like I'm blind to her and
She's
Harry blindly. I think they do everything great and that they're perfect. I think they're human.
well, you're just yeah, you're trying to be fair, and you don't want to be phony about it. If you didn't think it was at a certain level yet, you didn't. So
Yeah, I thought about not saying anything, but I thought no, because I do want people to see that I am willing to point out their flaws. I think that they've been done wrong, and I think they're doing the best they can in this situation. And I'm curious to hear what is going to be in that book.
I
The
mean, with
spare.
Harry's book,
Yeah,
it's called
yeah,
Spare.
spare,
Spare.
because
I
he's the
want to read.
spare, the heir and
Oh,
the spare.
got it. That's a good title.
That's what they call them. But can you imagine growing up and being called the spare? Like that,
Mm,
like that's just mean. I think that's just mean to do to a kid from the time you're little.
yeah. I'm
Being
sure he's
told that
got his
you don't
therapist has
matter.
heard all about it, because I think
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm
I think
sure.
it's
But
on
anyway,
their
I'll
pod.
be curious to.
I think it's on Netflix that they show him speaking with his
That's right. He
therapist.
had that too. Yeah,
Yeah.
he had that in.
Um, this is a side note, but I want to read Matthew Perry's book. We were talking about that, and it was at this party last night. A couple people gave it around as gifts, and I was like, "Oh, this looks good."
Yeah, they say he gave a lot of. It was telling all the dish. Well, one thing he said was that he made out with Valerie Bertinelli when right beside Eddie Halen when he was passed out.
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
Whoa. But anyway,
oh.
that was Valerie was probably like, oops.
Yeah. She was married, or maybe they weren't married at the time, and they
No, I think they were married because she
dating,
was
but
on that show that he was Matthew Perry was on a show with her,
oh, okay.
and they were married at the time. But
Good.
anyway,
Yeah.
so we got a couple good
Things happen.
memoirs to pick up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Curious to hear, yeah, all of his shenanigans. I know a girl that dated him
Oh
a long
yeah.
time ago in the 80s when we were going to acting school, or maybe early 90s. I don't know when it was. But
Oh,
yeah, he was
dated Matthew Perry.
bless his heart though for trying to overcome, his alcoholism. And I did read a quote where he said there was a picture of him with everybody and friends, and he looked at the other five people and was like, why do they get to not have this illness, basically?
Oh, that's
Like he
sad.
was having a little pity party, which you would. You're like, I want so good, but so badly, so desperately to be healthy, and I'm around all these people who are, and it's so easy for them not to drink, and it's like impossible for me. So you would,
Um, yeah.
kind of
I saw
get.
him on Bill Maher, and I guess they're friends, and he was just like, "You're looking really good," because he
Oh,
was just so enthusiastic that he's
yeah,
getting better.
good. Yeah,
So
that's a nice story. I hope he does well, and hope he finds some kind of peace. Some
yeah, yeah, let's
It's
hope
weird
so,
how it
right?
gets some people, some people. I was saying to my mother a couple weeks ago, I'm like, I'm just so glad we don't have that in our family. We have no alcoholism and drug addict. And, I don't know why it seeps into some families and not others, because it's not that we were, any more healthy than everybody else. We're a normal family. But I'm just glad we didn't have that in our DNA. Didn't
Well, I
have,
had two cousins well, one cousin died. He was addicted to cocaine, and he ended up dying he was taking some ulcer medication, but his heart was so from all the years of cocaine, and he died. I think he was like only 41 or something. He was really young, too young to die.
well, my extended family might have some alcoholism and drug addict, but I meant our
Mm.
immediate
Yeah,
family. We
immediate.
just
Yeah,
really never had to deal with that. And I was just always, I'm
my
glad that we didn't.
both of my parents have compulsive personalities that for some reason I don't. I'm just got lucky that way.
Yeah. Maybe you saw that and you're like, oh, I'm going to go the
Yeah,
opposite way.
I think it's partly environment and emotional, not just DNA. I definitely think there's something to do with emotional stuff going on in environment,
Yeah.
because if you're not happy, my one friend who's in recovery, she says it's, you self-medicate when you're not happy, you're just self-medicating all the time.
Yeah.
So it's multifaceted. I don't know that much about it, but maybe we should have somebody on the podcast and they could tell us.
Yeah. That would be something to talk about, because it's
Yeah.
really hard for the public to understand that it is. One thing I always say, and I always think and believe, nobody is making decisions to ruin their own life. Like if you can
Sure.
avoid a bad choice, you're going to. You're not going to get out of bed and go, I'm going to do this. I know it's going to ruin my life, but I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. Nobody does that. It's, it's a compulsion. You can't help it. And so I feel like I wish the public was more sympathetic to people that, they say make bad choices. And
Yeah.
even I've gotten frustrated with it because it's hard to deal with somebody that's a drug addict or alcoholic. You just want to say, just stop.
Yeah, that's one thing I do feel America is behind in, and we don't see it as an illness, and I think it's more of an illness and
Not sympathetic
psychological.
to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we're like, you should just get over it, do it,
Yeah.
And
Or,
some people just
I've sometimes thought, well, we all know drugs, you could get addicted. So don't do them in the first place. And you always wonder, why did you do that first time? You know that there's a chance. And I guess everybody wants to experiment. And I don't know. I don't know what
that's a
drives
whole other
people.
podcast. We should do that.
Yeah.
Actually, we should do something on
Yeah.
that.
Talk
That would
about
be a good one.
addiction.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Addiction.
But we kind of veered off the Harry and Meghan thing. So yeah,
Okay.
that's true. Because
That's
we're
okay.
talking,
A
we're
podcast.
real.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're in the moment.
Yes, we are. That's why we will call it In the Moment.
Yeah. But anyway, so but yeah, I have to go watch the other three. I heard actually the next 3 episodes, which have already been released on Netflix, are better. That's what my friends told me. They're better than
They're
the
more
first one.
critical though, aren't they, of the
Are they?
monarchy? I think.
I don't know. I don't know, but I just heard that everybody that's watched the second 3 liked them better
more interesting.
than the first 3.
Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna watch them all too. I just haven't had the chance. And but I've read a lot about it. In between while I'm doing other things, I'll see the headline and I click on it and I'm like, okay, let me skip through this. And picked up a lot, quotes from them, things they've said.
Right. She's very bright, and again, she's very I admire her confidence. I just feel like that's something I always strive to be, and I'd like to be more like that, more confident.
Yeah. Well, I think you're a confident lady without being overly
I don't want to be overly, yeah.
Because sometimes you can be confident and not realistic.
Well, that's true. I don't think I'm that way though. I mean, I think
you have a good sense of yourself and know your limitations, and not that you have any limitations.
Yeah, what limitation? What limitations?
Do anything. I'm your biggest fan, but I think being realistic also is important.
Yeah, that's true. It's so funny though. I've recently, was thinking about, when you get into acting, how they always say like, can you do that? Can you skydive? Sure. Yeah. And then you go and do it real quick, I mean, you do a crash course, but, I've been caught doing that sometimes for certain things. I'm like, and I'd say 8 out of 10 times I usually can fake it, but there's been a couple times I go, what was I thinking?
Yeah. I guess I'm usually more tentative. I'm like, I don't know. And I don't know if that's a confidence thing, because I have a lot of confidence in myself, but I just never I'm afraid of getting myself in a position that I can't.
Which is actually smart,
So I'm a little more cautious that way. I'm like, I'll try.
That's smart. But I'm always one of those people like, sure, I'll learn,
Well, and I'm not adventurous either. So if you ask me, can you ride a horse? I'm going to go, I don't know, I'll try, but I might not be able to. Riding a horse, I guess, isn't that adventurous, but to me it is.
Well, it could be if you get bucked, is that the right term? Bucked.
They're big animals. So.
Anyways, all right. Well, it was great seeing you guys, or seeing you, not you guys. You got to see us.
Great to have the conversation, and we welcome everybody's comments. Haters, come on, bring it on.
Bring it on. We can take it.
On my opinion, Kimbra's opinion, and Harry and Meghan, if you want, because this is the place where you can freely leave your comments below. And let us know. Maybe we'll follow up after the Spare comes out. And
that would be good. I should read that book. It sounds interesting.
I have no idea what's in it. I
haven't
seen much about it.
How could it not be interesting? I mean, he had a very interesting life. He is having an interesting life.
We'll see. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, he has an interesting life. But who knows how much he's going to reveal or what.
It's true.
So we will see though.
Yeah. And, all right. Well, we'll see you next time.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.